Welcome to Bitcoin for Peace. This is DJ Valerie Beloved, and I have somebody here with me who is on a monumental mission to make her country more fair, equitable, and free with Bitcoin. Welcome, Maya Parbhoe, who is going to be running for president of Suriname. Suriname. I know I got to get the name right. I had John on here, and he's like, Val, you're not saying it right.
Yeah, it's Suriname.
Suriname. Maya Parbhoe, how's it going, sister? The first female Bitcoin president. Let's go.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Did you just wake up one morning and you're like, I'm going to do this? Like, how did this all come about? Tell everybody
Oh,
who you are.
n-
What's your mission here?
oh no, I'm very much against politics actually, and
Wow.
government. Yeah.
But
So,
here you are going to lead the government on a mission.
well, I am running in the elections. So that is the goal. Yes.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, but no, it didn't actually come up even as an option, or at least I didn't agree to join any political party for the last 6 years while I was advocating here for Bitcoin adoption, and development of the capital market, um, and just financial infrastructure in our country in general. I always said no because I was very much against politics, and politicians here is very corrupt.
Mhm.
Um, and you usually have this feeling of, if you join, you're either going to be there long enough to become the bad guy, or they're going to make you out to be the bad guy, which is usually the situation here. So entrepreneurs, technocrats tend to stay far away from politics, and I'd been lobbying to get the same adoption or level of adoption as El Salvador, and there's actually opportunity for more in Suriname because we have a greater lack of infrastructure than El Salvador has. They're a lot more developed than we are. So the opportunity to innovate is bigger, and you're actually building like a lot of that old system that Bitcoin was built to replace, building
Mhm.
that from scratch here. So I was advocating for that for the last 6 years, and I'd been asked by multiple political parties to join, politics, and then actually join, um, actually be a part of the elections. But I'd always said no until last year. I went to Bitcoin Miami, and that's where I met Samson, or I was introduced to Samson, and I started to ask, like, okay, how do I get what they did in El Salvador, in Suriname? We need a similar sovereign bond in Suriname. We can do a lot of the same, um, that they've been doing there, or that Gen 3 had been doing there. And then basically Edwin told me, you need to get Samson on a flight to Suriname and talk
Mhm.
to the government. So I've been having meetings with them for the last year. And November last year, he came to Suriname, and that's when we actually had meetings with the president, with the central bank, meetings with several officials here, and chairman of the banking commission, and different people at some influential companies here, CEOs. um, and after a while, Samson started just saying, like, you need to run, you need to run. And then,
You're like, dude.
yeah, exactly, that was
What?
my
No,
response.
wait,
I was
hold
like,
on. Didn't sign up for
no,
this, dude.
no, this is not
Samson.
happening. It's not happening. It's not happening. But then at a certain point, I had discussions here with people. There's a group of technocrats that do want to change this country for the better. So I spoke to people that I know that have been either involved in protests last year. People that have participated in the previous elections. I talked to other party leaders, and influential people in the private sector. And then once I realized that there was a need for change, and that there was support if I did go into politics, because we're
Mhm.
not trying to um, be a part of the system of old politics, the old guard. Those are very corrupt, corrupt individuals, like corrupt parties, and they just have a history of ruining this country for the last 50 years. um that's when we decided to move forward. and it's still early on in the process. I mean, we're about a year out from the elections, so it's gonna get a lot busier about 6 months before the elections. Right now, we're very much focused on, our development strategy for the country. There's basically been none, or not an actual development strategy for this country. We have a specific set of problems that need to be addressed that have never been addressed. There's no vision for how to develop this country, how to diversify away from, the sectors that we have, or diversify towards a future that we can actually build upon. Sectors like education, healthcare, those are severely, um, they've gone backward, and they've been so bad in the last couple of years, even with COVID. The constant, um, the constant interruptions, for example, in education, healthcare has been detrimental. We're losing nurses. We don't have enough supplies in the hospitals right now, like basic supplies like IV bags and things like that. Specialists are leaving, doctors are leaving just because the pay is it's depressing. Like, some doctors here earn $300 a month, um, right? So they move to other countries in the region to earn a better salary there,
Yeah.
where they don't have to make a decision about who lives or dies every 5 minutes. So we're very focused on just creating solutions to problems like that, or helping others that are already working on solutions for problems like that. So we're not running a campaign, similar to what you're familiar with in the US, or what you're familiar with in Europe, that basically you have debates, or you go on TV, and you have like these ads constantly running. Here it works a lot differently. You have gatherings, events, and we're very much focused on actually doing, just not just saying, but actually just doing, and showing that things can be different, and be done differently. So we just want to focus on, actually giving back to the community by solving, some of these problems, as much as we can in the next year, and then heading into the elections, then, basically, hitting gas.
So you've gone from being allergic to politics to jumping in, and there is what you said. There's obviously a risk, like once you're in that system, it's like how do you make sure you can maintain that integrity that you're going in with,
Mhm.
And so, how are you developing a team around you that's supporting this vision?
So the team around me, I've already known for, some longer than a decade, some a bit shorter, but, they're all prominent figures in this country. They've all been fighting for, either if it's forest preservation, or other things. It's like the team around you, the people that are focused on actually developing this country. Um, People that already show integrity, outside of politics, and that are not in politics. it
Yeah.
it has become, most of our politicians don't have basic degrees.
Mm.
It's basically become like a career option here, and a source for, bribery and corruption. So that's the only way, how they see that they can make a couple of 100K, or millions, and they see no other opportunity outside of politics for that. So we the team I have around me are people that, you know are not a part of the system. They're outside of the system, and they don't want to be a part of that system either. They want to build a new system,
Mm.
and you can't completely prevent corruption unless you put in the foundation and the frameworks in place to actually sustain a system without, that does not allow for corruption, which is why I'm such an advocate of the adoption of Bitcoin here, and being able to track government spending using Bitcoin, right? You can immediately basically see where funds are being spent and how they're being spent. And I truly believe that there needs to be less government involvement in many industries, and many, many sectors in this country, such as healthcare and education, for example. Everything that the government touches in this country completely goes to shit. Like if you look at our energy industry, it's just completely going downhill constantly. And that is just because of the interest of a select few in the country that
Mhm.
benefit from corruption in these utility companies. And that is being revealed right now. There's massive amounts of corruption being unveiled within the electricity and the energy sector. So you basically have um, that distrust from the people already towards,
Mhm.
anything being government owned or managed, because those usually fail. They end up with massive amounts of debt. There's a lot of nepotism. People get politically placed into these boards in as management, while they're not even qualified or don't have the skills to actually manage or run these businesses. And the utility company, the water company, the gold mining company owned by the government, the telco, for example, everything in this country that is touched by government fails. And it's always corruption. So I see no other way for this country to be able to develop, and it's now or never, because we have massive amounts of offshore oil that will be going into development starting 2028. So once you
Mhm.
start heading into 2028 and getting this type of development um, happening offshore, and these massive amounts of royalties flowing in, we've seen previously what previous governments have done with royalties from our natural resources coming into the country. Natural resources in this country are not controlled in a way that it benefits the majority, or that it even benefits the development of this country. It is managed in a way that it only benefits a select few or government officials and those surrounding them. And I mean, this is inherent globally. This is something that
Yeah.
is happening globally. It's not something that is only happening here, but it's happening here to a very, 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 very broad extent, and very it's deeply nestled into how government in this country operates. And we basically need to change it right now, or need to change it after the next elections. Otherwise, this country is doomed. There is a severe mismanagement constantly at a government level, and even to such an extent that our institutions are failing. You know, I mean, central banks inherently are known for printing, but for example, I just received numbers from open market operations being done by our central bank, with interest rates that are the highest in the world for short-term treasury deposits, which is basically making the banks richer, but
Mhm.
eh, creating so much money and putting so much SRD into circulation into a currency that is already so inflated. And we have so much inflation in this country, basically, that it's the average salary is about 175 US a month, and it's only getting worse.
Wow.
um so that will come into circulation in about 9 months, right after the elections. So that's when you'll see another spike in inflation. So even our institutions are failing. The attorney general in our country, for example, is completely not independent whatsoever. She doesn't go after try anything basically that might involve our current president. So all of the
Mhm.
scandals that have been revealed in the past couple of years, they've all died. They've all been swept under the rug. And basically our news does not reach international media, or
Yeah.
it doesn't, like, not everything gets put into international media. What happens here, we're a very unknown country. Most people don't even know where we are in the world, but we're going to be one of the world's global leaders in oil. So we can either adapt and change and be a force for good, or we get corrupt criminals, former drug dealers, former dictators as leadership.
Yeah.
And that will be one of the world's global powers. So do we really want another Venezuela, or do we want a country that will be a force for good, or good change globally?
And how, this is obviously a big role that you're taking on, and how are you staying safe if you've got in a community with a lot of corruption? Obviously, there's people who are going to want to stay in power. They grip it, until somebody pries it out of their hands. And so, obviously, as a woman, as an entrepreneur, how are you? And obviously, as a Bitcoiner, how are you navigating, making sure that you're making sure that you're going to be safe on this journey?
Well, I've already had, threats and conversations where you get the message like you need to be stay out of the media or be
Mhm.
silent, and like apparently some older influential political leader or person in the country actually said, we should just clean her up. Like, yeah, this is something that happens on this side of the world, unfortunately. So it's I can only laugh about it because I'm honestly, I have no idea how else to deal with this type of intimidation.
Yeah,
Um, but I've had conversations with security, and I've gotten a lot of support from the community as well. People reaching out, trying to figure out how to solve for things like that. And there is support in terms of security, so we're putting that into place. Hopefully sooner rather than later. But
yeah,
yeah, I did. That is one of the risks that you take. Taking on a risk like that, or taking on a responsibility like that in a jurisdiction like this or in a region like this. Specifically one that is as opaque as ours is. Kind of
yeah,
like El Salvador was relatively unknown
yeah.
before Bukele did what Bukele did. But um, if he can manage to survive in that environment, we, I think I should be fine here.
And I love that you just brought him up. I wanted to ask you, obviously, he's, setting an example, for how to do nation state adoption. It's obviously the first experiment and petri dish of adoption, and making Bitcoin legal tender. Are you hanging out, having some coffee, talking about how to how to how to adopt the playbook and overlay that in Suriname?
No, no, we have not. Hopefully after the election, summer, we'll have a discussion. But I think, it's two different countries, two different histories.
Yeah.
Although there are a lot of similarities, although we are a part of the same region, it is still a completely different culture here. It's completely different dynamics, demographics. We're a lot bigger than El Salvador in terms of landmass. We have a much smaller population. We have about 600,000 ish people. So it's a very small population. We were Dutch speaking, so we're the only one on the continent that actually speak Dutch. So
Mhm.
we 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 have different types of ethnicities here as well. We're a mix of Creole, Maroon, Native Indian, Indian, Dutch, Chinese, Javanese. So it's a melting pot of different ethnicities and cultures. So culturally, it's a lot different. So I think even though there are a lot of similarities in terms of the ideals or the vision or what why you're a Bitcoiner and why you want Bitcoin to be adopted by your country, I think we do have different strategies on how to implement that in our country. I think ours is going to take a bit of a different or need a bit of a different approach.
Yeah, and I think that's something for all of us to know. I mean, whether you're an individual, an organization, or a country, it's like there's no cookie cutter way to, integrate Bitcoin into our lives, because we might
Hmm.
have different needs, and some people might need more privacy, some people might need more protection, et cetera. So I think there's a lot of learning to be done there, that it's not a one size fits all approach. So last week, right before we hit record, I was just telling you, the audience, I got referred to you by John Godshock, who I got to interview last week, from Biotara, and I met him on Summit at Sea. And, and he was saying that 95% of Suriname is covered by um, forest, rainforest and
Yeah,
forest.
93.
93,
90
sorry, 93.
93% forested.
So that's a lot, and so
Mhm,
how is it, are people, in different remote areas, are they understanding what Bitcoin is? Because when I was getting to share, his story, he was talking about his business model and how he wants to help, integrate Bitcoin into his workflow and helping the folks be more autonomous, getting the middlemen out of their flow. So what is it like for the different local communities, and thinking in terms of a circular economy for the country, and then in the micro regions, where folks are, how do
mhm.
people get it? Are people understanding what Bitcoin can do for them yet?
So we're in the city. You have, around 200 plus thousand people, and it's not a city, as it's not like one of the major metropolitan cities in the world. It's a very small city with wooden buildings. It's a UNESCO heritage site. It's,
Mm,
it's still colonial time buildings, in the city primarily, and outside of the city of the urban areas where people live. And then you have basically the largest part of the country, which is just green and forested, and
mm,
in little fragmented villages, aside the rivers, that's where you have little villages, little communities,
mhm,
that live there with, populations ranging from a couple of hundred to a couple of thousand. The largest one being around 1,700, 1,900 people. So not that big. So every village is, let's say, alongside the river, heading south in the country. And John is primarily focusing on, bringing development to those area, educating them on the use of using Bitcoin instead of being able to, or using, our local currency, which is hard for them to use going back and forth to the city.
yeah,
So there have been educational efforts. I think the main thing that they're struggling with is funding for these
mhm,
projects. Being able to fund people actually going out to these villages, being able to fund the, like the local projects. For example, I think there's a stingless bee project that was very interesting, that they've developed, natural herbs. John's working on the bioeconomy, bioeconomy. So,
mhm,
different types of solutions, but it takes a while to get funding and to get a project like that, for example, up and running. So in terms of education, it's, so, slow and steady. Up to now, it's basically been me, as a single person army in this country, trying to educate, going on TV in the media, and educating about Bitcoin. But I feel that there is a need for, broader education. So we're working with, also with Helen, who's Ben Van Hol's wife from Gen 3, has been helping us,
oh, cool.
um, to set up, a Mi Premier node here, get Mi
Yes,
Premier, Bitcoin in Suriname. So there will
good.
be more education. We've been working on the development of an education center, so hopefully that opens early June, and then that can get started and people have a place to go and learn more. But we have noticed that the meetups, for example, we have a monthly meetup here, on the 21st of every month. We've noticed that has gone from 2 to 3 people coming to a meetup like that to, more than 100 appearing to a meetup
Wow,
like that. And it's always questions about, learning more education, learning more about Bitcoin, learning how to invest, but, asking more about mining, and actually a lot of interest into education. And we're also planning our own conference here for the locals, primarily, and also for the Bitcoin community to come down and see what's happening on the ground here. But, um, our own conference where they can learn, about the actual companies in the industry and the legitimacy of it, because there's still a lot of distrust.
sure.
um, there's still, the idea that it is this scam, and that there's so many cryptocurrencies out there. Why is Bitcoin still the so there's not, like the general public doesn't understand the distinction between crypto and Bitcoin
Yeah,
yet, right?
yeah.
So, and I've been
Anywhere.
repeating, but exactly, but
Yeah.
giving it more legitimacy by, having companies be able to come here and give workshops, presentations to the private sector, to the financial sector, that will definitely increase education in the relevant sectors in this country, but also allow for recordings. Hopefully we'll have some coming here in Dutch that we can record and share with the local community afterward as well. So that's how we plan to tackle the education, primarily because it's such a small community.
Mhm.
It's fairly small in the city. So if you have a couple of thousand coming in, you have events where people are able to pay in Bitcoin. You have event organizers here looking to integrate wallets into their events. So that is an easy way for people to see the use, like how easy it is to use in comparison to everything else that they've ever known. And even everything else that they've ever known has been very, very bad.
Yeah.
Banking is very, like, you'd probably want to move after just using one online banking system in this country, just out of frustration.
Oh gosh. That's that is very frustrating, and I can't imagine what it's like when people just don't feel like that they have hope or they don't have choices, and when you don't feel financially sovereign and you don't feel like you can trust the government that's, just randomly printing money like ours does and all of these do. Um, it's really discouraging sometimes. So it's great that you're out there doing that. With the education center, um, are you guys going to do anything beyond basic Bitcoin training? Are you going to teach people how to become developers perhaps or
Yeah,
learn,
so there's actually already a couple of Bitcoiners moving here to help on the ground.
yay.
And there's actually a soccer academy, Nova Stars, and they've been active for the past year. And they basically, the goal of the whole thing is to teach kids discipline and give them opportunities, in
Mhm.
soccer, and get them off the street in underprivileged neighborhoods and all throughout the country. And they have about 800 to 1,300 families currently. So 800, I think, currently aiming for 1,300 families. And these kids, not all of them are going to be, professional soccer players at the
Mhm.
end. So we want to teach them the skills, or they want to teach them the skills, development skills, so that they have an opportunity outside of just soccer. So they're currently looking for teachers, educators, collaborators that can help them set that part of education up here. So everything's kind of like ongoing. It seems like there is um, a lot more finally coming to fruition that we've been working on for the last year. So it's beautiful to see.
That's incredible. Peter McCormick?
Yes,
Like,
real
so he
Bedford. Yeah,
yeah, so maybe he could get some of his, team or some folks to come and do some workshops with your kids down there. That would be fun, to
yeah,
get
that
some
would definitely be amazing.
and then you guys could do some Bitcoin stuff and some hang out. I'm always like, "Oh." Um, yeah, I'm so happy for him. He's rocking it. Um, um, do the kids get it? Like, do the children, like, do you have kids or teenagers that are starting to understand Bitcoin a little bit? Are they embracing it, or is it more adults that are coming to the meetups?
No, actually, it's a combination.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of feedback that the younger generation, they're already using it. Our meetup location actually is getting more people coming in and paying with Bitcoin. So the younger generation is already very much into it. It's actually their parents that are learning from the younger generation.
Yeah, it seems like how that works. All of us geezers are the last ones to figure it out. But it's true. It's like I feel like if you don't have to unlearn something as a young person, you're fresh. And so when we're teaching them from the lens of a Bitcoin standard instead of a fiat standard, then it's easier for us obviously to uh, help them understand and move forward. But if we have to do all this undoing, there's a lot more resistance, to this. Here we go. Yes, there we go. We've got Chris who left a comment. Yes, who just answered. Da, 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 da. Here, do you want to answer this other question from Nanda? Connected with Maya on Telegram. I'm from Guyana, living in the UK. Question for Maya: what are the chances of Bitcoin being adopted or even accepted by the Guyana government, or how to get people to accept it? Any thoughts on that,
On
Amanda?
Honestly, I have no idea whether the Guyanese government is even considering it. To be honest, or if there has been outreach. I haven't been to Guyana in a while, so aside from infrastructure works, I'm not really familiar with what's happening on the ground there. But I'd say, similar to what we've been doing here, get started, start a local circular economy, start educating, start, looking for local, well, not even looking, just creating a signal. 21 World is a great resource to
Mhm.
create, a local fork and then a local community. So there are enough platforms. Just get started, and it just grows over time.
It does, yeah, and I think doesn't Bitcoin Beach put out, like, an open source paper of how they did their
Yeah.
circular economy? And
Hmm.
you can also look at BTC maps for different other circular economies and places that are, doing Bitcoin all over the world, and like we talked about just a few minutes ago, there's no one size fits all on how to get this adoption going. It's just get it started at least, and uh,
Yeah.
get people on the page. Let's segue into your business, Maya. Like how you've got you're a juggling octopus mama. Uh, um, let's talk about Dataless Labs. You want to tell everybody what this is?
Yeah, so data is actually well, well, it all started about let's see, 2017, when just out of my infrastructure company, we had the opportunity to be able to invest into, something else, and diversify the company. And civil engineering is not really my it's not my strong suit. It's not my passion either. It's Sergis, the CTO for that company. So uh, the question was, what am I passionate about? And Bitcoin is the intersection of math, finance. It's basically everything I love all packed up into one, and it's a solution to what has been, a broken system. If you look at the capital markets and stocks and how that has developed over the last couple of decades. So I saw it as a solution for us. And I started out actually trying to develop the capital market here in Suriname and building an exchange. And then we had on the roadmap a real estate investment trust that we would develop somewhere, in actually 2 or 3 years down the road. And that actually in 2022 became the focus of the whole company. And that's how Daedalus Labs was born, simply focusing on, us as humans. What is your basic need? Like, if you're going to rebuild the system, if you're going to rebuild a capital market, how can you use existing regulation, existing financial and legal frameworks? How can you use existing systems in a way that it actually benefits the masses? And then how can you do that on a Bitcoin standard? Like, how can you use Bitcoin to change, like, for example, a traditional mortgage, or how real estate investment is done? And that's how we started working on building Resin, which is a Bitcoin real estate investment trust. And what we basically do is you enable people to buy a home without needing a down payment, without needing to have debt, for 30 to 20 to 30 years of their life. So basically, until you're in your late 50s or 60s, that's when you're going to be still paying off this debt. So it creates this industry where you're constantly like striving on the investment side to increase the value and valuation of homes, and on the user side, the user always loses. The consumer always loses. They always end up paying proportionally more for that property than they would have if they had just had cash, right? Like, if
Mm.
they had just had the full amount. And you're not just a marginal profit, but a very large profit over the duration of that debt and that loan. And we're all Bitcoiners. We all know exactly why Bitcoin was developed and what kind of opportunities that gives us. But we're still stuck in the system. Most of us still have a mortgage. Let's be honest. Like, unless you're able to buy a house outright cash, you don't you still have a bank account because you still have that mortgage. So how do you get how do you get the system started where basically you don't need a bank at all? And then it's one of the basic needs, shelter. You need to solve for that problem. People need to be able to acquire a home without needing to go through a bank for that process. So which is why we're focusing on resin developing the app. Also, we wanted to solve a real world problem for people, something at just the base and the core, something that can scale globally. Like if you look at just the average, or the majority of companies developing in the space, most of them are developing solutions for either other Bitcoiners or something that has a complex, actually keeps all the complexity, that is involved with channel management or running a node, or the infrastructure that you need to use. We're trying to just focus on user friendliness, creating a solution that is as user friendly as possible, that can scale, and that people can use without needing to understand all of the underlying complexity, right? When
Yeah.
you're using Airbnb, you don't need to understand how the internet works or how
Yeah.
mobile apps work. You don't need to be a developer to know how to use Airbnb. You just use it, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're transitioning from just building applications that can just scale to the community, to building applications that can actually just function. Like just the internet is there, Bitcoin is there, the layer, the protocol, it's already there. We just need to build applications that solve a direct problem for users, and that make the old system irrelevant,
Yeah.
right? And break those old models that were created by that system. Like for example, Airbnb has incentivized real estate investment into, a lot of cities, and has made housing unaffordable for
Yeah.
locals. It's incentivized like rent seeking. It's incentivizing people that have wealth already to acquire more real estate and earn more, and then they're giving. And Airbnb is global, but a percentage of that revenue, of those profits, are flowing back to Airbnb in the US. So it's this system where it's extracting value away from the rest of the world and just centralizing it into one economy, and then in not even to the entire economy in the US, but to the top 0.2%. So if you look at traditional real estate investment trusts, that's how they're structured. That's how their revenue model, their business model, and that's how the entire real estate um, industry is structured, right? It's all around this opaque system that incentivizes the seeking profit to the benefit of the few at the cost of the many.
Yeah.
So we're building a solution to completely restructure and disrupt that model, and basically make it a loss to buy a property to have an Airbnb. It would be better to do it on resin and have the entire community benefit, because then it's the community good. So, and you don't have to pay that amount of fees going into a single app just for using it.
Can
So
you walk us through, like, because I wanna get my head around this, because my ex-husband and I, he's still running the fund, but we started a real estate lending fund, over 10 years ago, and he's still, doing this for people with fix and flips, like hard money lending, and um, so I have some experience in finance, with real estate. However, I want to understand this through the lens of Bitcoin, and how what does this new model look like? So if I'm a consumer, or if I'm somebody who wants to get a house, how would this, like, what would happen? What would my journey look like?
well, as a consumer, you use the app. So you download the app or go onto the website, and you get an interface that is something that you're already familiar to, or similar to what you're already familiar to, with real estate apps. And you see what is available in your area, or you submit a property. but usually you go through the search, you see based on the map, basically what is offered in your area. You like a house, for example, you buy that house, you click buy that house, you submit a limited amount of documents similar to what you would need to supply to be able to rent the house, because it's a rent to own model. And then what happens is the real estate investment trust acquires the property, and then you buy equity into the property over time. So you're building wealth.
Interesting. That is seriously cool. Let me ask you this, like, this is something I brought up with, my friend Terrence and Peter from the Bitcoin Advisor, because a lot of people right now, whether I'm not sure in every country, but here in certain parts of the states, because of inflation, housing prices have skyrocketed, and
Hmm.
some of us have mortgages that are pretty low interest rates that we got in before all the rates went up, right? But so we've got this, um, this unrealized, this untouched equity that's just, sitting there. So rather than
Hmm.
selling the house and cashing out and getting Bitcoin, you know, a lot, I've been thinking like, well, how can we, is there a way that we could do like co-signing as a service or something where we would have like a second mortgage put onto a house, but then it, Bitcoin gets bought with it, and then we put it in a multi-sig kind of an escrow thing so that the person who's doing the co-signing as a service, has access to the Bitcoin, they get a percentage, and then now we get more Bitcoin, and then we've pulled some of that equity out of, just sitting there on the
Yeah.
books and
So
not doing
so
anything.
so so I want to just open that up and shake it up a little bit. So
Yay. Shake it up.
so yeah, so you're saying equity, right? And you're saying it in quotation marks because it's not really equity, it's incentive to create more debt, basically,
Okay.
a part in that opaque banking system, right? It's you have inflation that is flowing into the housing market, where housing prices are no longer related or correlated to their actual value, but have just
Yeah.
gained you know fake equity, basically, or fake value, increased value over time, that you can now borrow against to put yourself more into debt, to basically be able to, yeah, for example, acquiring Bitcoin would be a good way to get out of that debt long
Yeah.
term. But basically what you could do with us was refinance the mortgage, because it's a hybrid REIT, so you can refinance existing mortgages. And the way that the REIT structure itself works is that it actually purchases an equal value of Bitcoin for the value of the house.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so
Um,
it's like a massive fiat vampire. And to explain it easily, it's similar to what MicroStrategy is doing with shares. It's a publicly traded company. They issue shares, and with that fiat, they acquire Bitcoin and hold that in treasury. In
mhm.
this case, you have real estate in treasury and an equivalent amount in Bitcoin in treasury. So the portfolio value over time will be worth way more than the depreciation, or in relation to the depreciation of real estate, in comparison to the appreciation of Bitcoin over time.
And so, is this available all over the world, or where is this available?
We're building we're building
Okay.
we're launching the product to the open market in Q4 this year.
Yay, Q4. That's gonna be when you're also president, is this true?
No, the elections are next year in
Next year,
May.
okay.
Yeah, so next year in May, and then I'll be needing to take a step back from full-time CEO.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that's a lot on your plate for both of these things. Well, it's cool though, because 'cause you're building something that's gonna last, that's obviously based in, the business world, and it's not just in the politics world, so
Yeah, no, Daedalus and we have a very strong belief in building open source and using open source technologies. And we looked at the struggles that a lot of Bitcoin companies are facing, and that is usually their revenue model or their business model.
mhm,
Because how do you create income out of an application that has a
yeah,
low margin without making the user their product or their data their product, right? with our business model, we have it's already a sound business model in itself. Real estate, a real estate investment trust just buys, acquires properties, and in this case, it just the structure and the dynamics are completely novel and innovative, so that it follows the properties of Bitcoin and works for the community. So we truly believe that this can be something that can you know gather support from the community, be built by the community, and that we can, even if if I need to move on to other things, then it just lives on by the community itself.
Oh my god. I hope you move on to those other things. I'm rooting for you. I mean, but
Thanks.
yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, I love, go-getter, ambitious women like you. You're so admirable, and you're not just sort of talking, you're actually walking and running. You're sprinting toward the finish line. You're, you're bringing us all along with you. It's like really, really inspirational. Have you always been like this? I'd love to just go if a little personal, if you don't mind. Like you're
Oh
obviously
yeah.
a very motivated woman. Like, is this your character and nature since you were little?
Yeah, I've always been like this since I was a child. My mom always said this country is way too small for you. Um, yeah, and my Oxford professor actually said that out of 13,000 students, I was his number one. I'm the number one student. So um, I tend to be like an overachiever and a little bit of a perfectionist, and I have OCD, so I'm very obsessed and upset. I tend to obsess about something, and once I've put something in my head, it doesn't matter if it takes 10 years, but I will get there, or
Yeah, dude.
longer. I will get there. And I might have ups and downs, and
Sure.
I might need a break. For example, last year I really needed a break from the conferences. I was doing way too much back to back and working way too much at
Yeah.
each one. So I did take a little bit of a step back from that. So I do have my ups and downs as well. Not It's not always smooth sailing,
Yeah.
and big ambitions do tend to cost more in
They do.
terms of,
And
yeah.
what do you do, like, for your self-care practices when you're taking your breaks, whether it's chunks of time that you need to step away or just micro self-care so that you can keep a full tank and do your mission?
I just micro self care. I have like habits just to get me back to energy, or touch keep me back in reality. Like, I have friends that I've had since high school. They keep me grounded. I have my family around me. It's very different than the fast paced life in the U.S. or in Europe. So with your family here around you constantly as a support system, and then I go back to just my friends and my family, and then you realize that there's more to life than just only working on Bitcoin and only focusing on work. Yes, there's a little bit more to life, so that keeps me sane.
It's important, I know, and it's tough sometimes because when you get in that flow, especially when you're so passionate
Yeah,
and you can, like, as visionaries, we see the future, we see the possibilities, and we're like,
yeah.
But if we just put this here and do that, and if we kinda go here, and we grab that over there, let's go." And you're just like, "Yeah,
Yes,
and it's
and
gonna."
why is everybody making it so much slower? It's like, I had this conversation in our team meeting actually on Monday, where they're asking, like, are you happy with the pace, like, are you happy with the progress, and I'm like, no, I need it to be done yesterday. And then they go like, Maya, you need to relax, like, n- normal pace, normal pace. And then I have for example, I'd been doing extra work on the weekend, so I go all out on the weekend as well. And then actually, like, last weekend on Sunday, I had to remind myself, like, it's okay to not have everything scheduled for today, and just kind of like take a normal day and a
Totally.
normal Sunday and relax. So that's my reality check from time to time.
It's so important, and I know, like, it's easy to just get consumed. Just, from the lens of a female, obviously, you know, being a leader is a big deal, and a lot of people treat you differently, Because if a man is out there, perhaps, and he's just like, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Everyone's like, yeah, let's go. And if a woman, is like, come on, come on. They're like, lighten up, lady, quit being so bitchy. And you're just like, We have the same vision and we're doing the same thing, but somehow I'm a bitch, and he's a warrior or something. So have you had to navigate that in your leadership roles?
Well, no, not as much. Like I get
Good.
more because I'm one of the few women in this country that um has their own companies or multiple companies, and especially as young as I am. So I already I'm like a how do you say this? I'm already like
An
a rare
anomaly,
breed.
you're rare.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm already a rare breed here. So I'm kind of used to that already. So
Mhm.
I don't get that as much, but I do get that, you get less support. You get um you have people that are actively like against you just because you're a female and you're doing something that is larger than they are doing, or you have opportunities that they don't, like men particularly are. And I'm speaking of men in positions of power that are also corrupt. So it's usually those types
Yeah.
that I have issues with here. But other than that, it's perfectly okay, I guess. I actually have it more in the Bitcoin industry, where I
Mm.
have people that are very supportive and, very like proactive, and just want to support and help in whatever way they can, or as much as they can. And then you have people that, I don't know, there's also this kind of thing in the industry where they lack trust just because you're foreign, or things are too different from their own world.
Mm.
And I have that a lot with, some of the European, like some European Bitcoiners. They don't understand at all what life is like in Latin America, or like in a third world country. They have no idea. And like they have no idea what it's like to not be able to, like, they come here, or they arrive here, and then they try to use their credit card, and I'm like, haha, now you get it. Yeah. Go stand in line at an ATM. Like you won't be able to use your credit card anyway. So that's
Wow.
when they realize, like, it is like, it's for them, it's just like a reality shock. It's like, holy shit, like this is going back into time 50 years. Like, yes, welcome to Suriname.
Yeah, and then let's leapfrog over all the bullshit and get Bitcoin adoption and,
Exactly.
like,
Like,
don't
just,
don't go into
yeah,
the
stop
credit card
stop stop
zone.
bullshitting and arguing. Just come over and help.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Do you feel like so you said a few Bitcoiners are moving there, so that's exciting. When I was asking John about opportunities for people to come visit and tour and have like,
Yeah.
a retreat or some kind of you said you have a conference coming up. When is that gonna be?
Early November. They're actually finalizing the dates. I think today. So
Oh.
that should be yeah. So they should be launching the website soon, and announcing officially, because we initially had it planned for March this year.
Mhm.
But like the team had lack of sponsorship, and also everything was just like taking way too long to get support from people who had committed support
Mhm.
from the industry. So we decided to postpone it to November, and work together with another conference that's already happening in November here, the social media conference. So
Oh,
it'll be
cool.
yeah, so it'll be directly after that. And basically, it's more of an unconference,
Okay.
because it doesn't make sense for Suriname, for complex speakers and conversations where they're going to explain the technicalities of Bitcoin. People
Yeah.
need to still understand the basics.
Yeah.
So we want to focus on speakers that are relevant to the audiences here, and then can, convey the message of what Bitcoin is and Bitcoin can mean to them, in a way and a manner that they'll understand. And we want to have more unconference events. So
Mhm.
they're focusing, the team's focusing on doing, like you just said, things like retreats, tourist spots that, we'll have an event there, And basically people will be able to book that in advance, pay it in advance using Bitcoin, and the local tour guides will organize these group sessions where you're going out to somewhere in the middle of the Amazon jungle that only a couple of hundred people have seen,
Cool.
in the in since history. So that's what we're focusing on for the Bitcoin community, to be able to see the beauty of our country and the beauty of
Yeah.
our culture and our people. But for the locals, you have events in the cities where they'll be able to pay in Bitcoin. So they'll just be able to use it and learn about it and how easy it is and how it's better than the fiat money that they have,
Yeah.
by using it and being able to spend it just at an event and downloading an app.
Totally. And yeah, I think the more we can touch and feel it is super important.
Mhm.
Is it going to be in conjunction or bookended on adopting Bitcoin in El Salvador? Because it seems like
So no, I think it's gonna be right before.
so it'll
And
be
there, yeah, and
yeah.
there's flights from here to Panama. So if
Okay.
anyone wants to, if you're coming from the other side of the world, it's an easy hop over to El Salvador.
Cool.
So yeah, it's we're not doing the same dates as any other conferences in any case.
Cool. No, because it just seems like if we're heading south, we might as well go a little further
Yeah.
south to come see you guys. And then, are you going to do anything with Me Premier Bitcoin for with because they do unconferences now at a lot of these events, and so it seems like they would be a great partner.
I'll suggest it to the team. I'm not in charge of the conference. There's an entirely separate team working on that, but I'll suggest it to them.
Cool, right on. Hey, so check it out. Chris has a question. Uh, Chris is in awe of what you're doing. Truly inspirational. My question is, who have been and are your biggest inspirations today? I love this question, Chris. I was going to ask her too. So you're reading my little old mind.
Well, just yeah, I'm a big fan of Jack Dorsey.
Yes.
Um, he's been just also just in terms of personality, like, you might think that I'm extrovert, but I actually like staying just at home and not having to go places and speak to people and do things with other people. I like just being here.
You're like, I want to work on my
Uh,
project.
yes, exactly.
It's
And
true. I
then
know. It's like you're a builder. That's like so cool. So
yeah,
it's
so like
logical.
that's what I like, because he seems like a little bit of a hermit, which is something I like, because you can build something that reaches so many lives and touches so many lives in the world, and then build more, and not be in like in like in the media or in public as much. I think he's, yeah, in terms of that, and just his approach to open source and how he changed his
Mhm,
opinion on that after Twitter, and what happened to Twitter. um and other than that, just entrepreneurs that
mhm,
have created technology that truly changes the world. I grew up, looking up to Henry Ford, for example,
mm,
just being a captain or a leader of industry. And I believe that the world, needs more leaders that are not just focused on like a dystopia or on the financial markets or personal gain, but that are focused on, building and developing a better world than the one that we have right now. And I think that is very scarce, and
yeah,
that we're lacking leadership where you can actually be inspired, right? Like
yeah,
it's been a while since there's been like a Steve Jobs that captivated the entire world with innovation. And I don't agree with everything that Apple does right now. I don't agree with everything that Apple has done in the past, but you do miss that kind of like innovative, inspiring leader. Like Elon Musk might be that for a lot of people right now. I I think there need to be more, that have different perspectives, and that are not pro this centralization, because
yeah,
even having the amount of money and resources that are just being controlled by a a handful of people globally. Resources need to be allocated and just spread out throughout the world more equally, right? Elon Musk said he was going to solve world hunger, um, you know, it by himself, and that died a slow and sudden death after several conversations. So we need more of things like that, actually, you know, them saying it and then it actually playing out, and more leaders like that.
Yeah. Well, and it's tough obviously because it's like, how do you the incentive for doing all of these things that are good and positive for the world, it's like peace is obviously a positive outcome to things, ending world hunger, saving the rainforest, etc. It's like, how do you make those things more profitable then war, then destroying the forest, then hungry children, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, that's, as much as we want to live in, kumbaya land and everybody's, peace, love, and fairy tales, it's like things are driven with economic incentives. And so,
Mhm.
how can we flip it? When John was talking about what he's doing with Biotata, is, how do you make it more profitable to keep the rainforest and the forest alive than chopping it down and using it for whether it's for cow production or biochar or whatever. And so that's something I think entrepreneurs, need to come forward. And it's like, what isn't it more economically beneficial to the whole to have a
Yeah,
peaceful
but just
society where everybody's employed and working and healthy? Like that seems to be better for the
yeah,
whole
but
versus the few.
I mean, that has been, it's better for the whole for decades. It's been
Yeah.
we've known for decades that war is bad.
Yeah.
But if you look at, for example, like Tesla's a good example, right? There was no incentive to go into EV development, or for car manufacturers to push EV or solar or renewables. There was
Mhm.
no such incentive for government to actually go after it. He actually went all in and built this company that leads by example. I think
Yeah.
we need more leaders that lead by example and show you, like, okay, government doesn't want to incentivize this, watch me, right? And then just watch him do it.
But he ended up getting subsidies though from the government. And so that's kind
Yes,
of this is where
but
it's a tricky.
he's the yeah, but he did create the momentum to head, or to shift more towards,
Yeah,
what you're saying, right? Creating incentive for something to be profitable, or to be more profitable than the opposite of it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Oil is still very profitable. Coal mining, they still do that. But
yeah,
the whole industry has shifted in a couple of years because of basically one person, one company. And you're all like, unless, or until, no, not even unless, until the state is defunded and the global reserve currency is Bitcoin, you're still going to need these types of, subsidies, government subsidies, and all that, um, to create a company of that scale.
yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be curious to see how people are starting to develop their companies, if they can model it after that and make, a better world more profitable than an unhealthy and corrupt and violent world. So I hope that your journey leads us at least to one of those, layers of the next generation. Like you're amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so excited and impressed. How can people support you and find you? Do you have a campaign started with funding? Are you accepting Bitcoin? I know you've got obviously how does this work? You said the whole election cycle and everything's a little bit different than it is, around the world.
Yeah, it's not as coordinated and online as it is in other countries.
Mhm.
But the team is working on setting up a campaign page, and setting up donation pages, and it's going to be in Bitcoin. But we also want it to be trackable, so where
Yeah,
the funds are going into, and how they're being spent, and then have that be easily trackable online.
cool.
So we're working on that. That'll be out soon. Keep an eye on my Twitter, on X.
Yeah, definitely. For those of you
And
listening and if you can't see the screen, you gotta follow Maya at MAYAPAR 25 on Twitter. Uh, This is so great. Any final thoughts or closing thoughts for aspiring entrepreneurs or aspiring change makers, aspiring leaders? Are you there? Did you hear me?
Me?
Yeah, did you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry.
I'm asking you for your final thoughts.
Oh, me on final thoughts. I thought we were waiting for a question from the
Oh,
audience, to
sorry,
be
sorry.
honest.
No, do you have any, my bad, my total bad. Do you have any final thoughts of inspiration and words of wisdom to any aspiring leaders or aspiring entrepreneurs or people who wanna go make a difference?
Well, I'd say, just get started, just reach out, just the Bitcoin community is so big, and there's always somewhere where you can find, an alignment in terms of passion or vision or something that you want to do or want to build. It's not easy. It takes quite a amount of sacrifice depending on how big your aspirations are. But just, as everything in life, just never give up and just keep at it.
I love
Proof
it.
of work, right?
Proof of work. That's really the only thing that works is proof of work.
Yeah,
Proof of talk doesn't lead to much. Proof of work does.
exactly.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us, and I'm glad we got to reschedule this and make it
Yeah.
happen. And I really appreciate your time and everything you're doing. I know you're obviously a very, very busy woman at making the world better. So thanks a lot. And yeah,
Thank
if
you for
anything
having
that
me.
yeah, of course. And anything that you guys, make sure you follow Maya and anything that comes up, Maya, like tag me, I'll repost, I'm not Joe Rogan or anything yet, but but every little bit counts, right? And everybody who's listening, just remember that
Yeah.
every little thing matters, and make great choices, and we'll have a better world together. So, hold, I've got one more comment. I didn't see it. Yay! Hold on. Totally agree. Here we go. Yay. Thanks, Chris. All right, everybody. So thanks for tuning in. Oh, and hey, you guys, check it out. I'm going to plug the final event here. Guess what we're doing this weekend? We're doing dun, 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 the Bitcoin for Peace Virtual Creator Summit on Saturday. So we have over 50 speakers and panelists, and we're going to be talking very, intro to Bitcoin, intro to self custody, intro to value for value. How do you build a network? How are you grow in your community? What's creative process? What's your marketing process? So I'm really excited. We're going to be bringing a lot of folks together in a 7-hour summit, and we're going to have recordings, and it's all value for value donation based. So share it with your friends, and I hope you guys can make it. And but more importantly than that, make sure you guys follow Maya. And thanks again for taking time to be with us, Maya. And everybody else, have a wonderful day. Peace, love, and warm aloha. This is DJ Val. I'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks, Maya.